What does Black Lives Matter activism look like to you?
To me, so far, it has meant a lot of learning. And, there are so many sources to learn from. And I think it's really easy to go into like the performative stuff, which, is also to an extent can be good, to show that you support something. Like that's not a bad thing. But I'm not so huge on the social media thing. And for me, it's more been like finding out my own like problems and really trying to dig into it and see like, oh, why did I feel that way? Or, what kind of things are really ingrained that I need to kind of think about.
To you, what does Black Lives Matter activism look like?
For activism, it is about being a leader, and the actions you take as an advocate and ally are you're consistently thinking about the goals of BLM and again like putting your life at risk because speaking out about systemic racism like in America with white supremacy is a danger to your lives. So I think speaking out to people who disagree with you is what BLM activism is about.
What does BLM activism look like to you?
If you inform others to either become an ally or go on and become part of something to help the movement and, posting on social media and also, either going to protests or other things. That's what Black Lives Matter is.
What does BLM activism look like to you? I guess in the media, I tend to see protests of like groups of people protesting in the street. So that was probably what BLM activism would look like to me. In relation to the images that you showed me, like it seems that there are more famous people from the civil rights era. So I guess that makes it feel like the BLM movement might be a bit more populist and less like hierarchical in structure or something.
What does Black Lives Matter activism look like to you?
Foremost, I think it's just bringing awareness to certain issues that are a result of systemic racism. And I think for people who are Black Lives Matter activists, like a large part of what they're trying to do, right, is to highlight the issues that still exist. So I think that's like one big thing. I think another is when we have big events, kind of like how we saw with like the George Floyd trials and like the protests that happened, I think a large part of that is protesting, but also helping those who have been affected regain sort of a sense of community who's trying to like bring justice back to the people it's been affected to. So whether it be like mobilizing through protests or like through donations to certain like legal funds or like charities, I think that kind of the activism that I've seen going on.
What does BLM activism look like to you?
Activism through protests, through talking to maybe representatives and legislators, to like just organizing in your own community and trying to like inspire on the ground people to join your movement. There's like digital organizing, digital activism, I guess. Petitions, donations, education, learning more about the history, the significance, things like that. But yeah, and I think it's interesting that after COVID, I think people are more creative in terms of online activism.
When it becomes very at its most visible points, like this summer is like reactionary to like building on like anger that people like have that things aren't changing in America. So I think like it will depend on events that happen, but I guess where like I see it going is I think especially after this summer, more people are incorporating racial justice into every aspect of their lives. So like in my philanthropy class, we were able to give at Rice $20,000 to nonprofit organizations, and we were the first class to ever give to a project or program specifically focused on a racial justice project. Like for the Lawndale Arts Center, they have the Sankofa project that like highlights and empowers Black artists. But so I guess it's going to be like the Black Lives Matter movement branching out into aspects maybe beyond police brutality, but I think that is the core focus about continuing to like make changes to make the criminal justice system what it needs to be.
What does BLM activism look like to you?
I think that there is, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience, I think there's a moment that happens, an intervention point of sorts that happens where an individual recognizes, and it could be murder of an unarmed person. It could be any sort of moment that just kind of hits you and you say, you know what, I've seen this happen. Maybe I kind of been on the sidelines a little bit. You know, maybe I've done a couple things, sent a couple tweets, you know, did a couple Facebook posts or whatever. But I think there really is something else that I should be doing. You know, I think there's a little bit more that I can contribute to this particular moment. And in that, once you feel that, I think you have, you know, one of two decisions to make. You either honor that kind of inkling, which I think is a spiritual kind of ancestral type of knock on the door, or you can continue to kind of move as you have. And if you choose to honor that inkling and move into that space, then that means you go out and seek out opportunities to be a part of whatever is happening in whatever community that you want to impact. And so I think anybody can do that. And so I say that to say, like, for myself, when I came back to Houston in 2014, like, I knew that there was something. When Mike Brown was killed, I knew there was something else that I needed to be doing other than just going to the gallery to protest, or other than just going to McGregor to protest or whatever. I knew there was something I needed to do a bit more. And so I just went and sought out different opportunities, went to different meetings, went to different protests, saw who was speaking, saw who was talking, asked, hey, is there anything else I can do? How can I contribute? How can I organize with y'all? And you just learn. And then you find an issue that you're passionate about, and you organize around that issue. You don't have to have like a Six Sigma black belt or be some kind of specialist or go to Activist University 101 and get a PhD in activism. It really is just about honoring that call. And I really do think spirit guides you and lets you know, like, this is where you need to go. This is what you need to be doing. And you feel that, you know, I mean, not to sound real kind of woo woo, and, you know, I'm not about to bust out no sage or nothing, but I just think it's that, it's just honoring and moving in that direction. And so I think anybody, can be a part of this movement. And so I think to say, like, what does it mean to be a BLM activist? I think is, what does it mean more broadly to be a person who's concerned with justice and equity, right? A person who's concerned with racial justice and equity, in all the different forms that they may come for all people. So that's what it means, particularly for me, in a more broad term. And if you decide that the movement for Black lives is something that you want to participate in, then that will be your thing.
Is there anything that you would want to like shout out, or other things in like the Houston area that people can get involved in? Or, things that you do that you want to promote and things like that?
For sure, I don't mind doing a little promo. We are organizing this deal called Data to Dream. It's with BLMHTX, and we're doing this with a group called Data Jams. And it happens on Saturdays. And so if folks want to get involved with that, they can go and register on Eventbrite. It's called Data to Dream, Building Our City Budget for Houston. And you can get registered on Eventbrite under our name, BLMHTX. It's a fantastic event. We've done it. We started last summer with the Data Jams crew, and what we were doing was helping folks understand data, helping folks understand how to take like city budget data, any data that they're concerned about, right? Housing, etc. How to take like the raw data and actually understand what it says, and then put it into like an infographic or something that you could use for whatever your initiative, project, campaign might be. And so that was a really dope deal, because we learned a lot about data visualization. So, you know, like those real cool infographics, it's like, it's 1 penny to do this and 15 pennies to do that and all that kind of fun stuff. People like, oh my God, I had no idea that's what that, you know, so it's basically taking all that and making it into something that, you know, anybody can understand and that you can understand too. So like when you go down to city council and they're like, oh, we can't defund the police. And you're like, oh yes, you can, because you defunded education back in, you know, 2020, and then you did this. And so all you got to do is take that penny and move it up here. So it really helps you to become equipped when you're going down to advocate for certain issues, to be able to speak to the numbers. And also so they can kind of throw you off the path too, because they'll say, oh, we can't do that. And it's like, oh yeah, you can do it. You definitely can, because you've done it before. You could do it again. So it really helps to empower folks and for them to feel confident about that. So that's a dope event. It happens on Saturdays at 11 o'clock. But if you hop on Eventbrite, you can see what's going on with that. And then we also are doing, last thing, we're doing COVID-19 pandemic relief mutual aid network we created called HTX Mutual Aid. So if you go to www.blmhtx.org, you'll see about that. We shifted, of course, when the winter storm came. So I almost called it tropical storm. Lord help, let's hope that doesn't happen. Winter storm Uri came, we were providing aid for folks for that. So we've been doing that for over a year, providing mutual aid. It's been a year and a couple months now, providing mutual aid for folks who need rental assistance, financial assistance, basic needs, etc. So go on to that page and you'll be able to find out more, and also donate, because we are a grassroots organization of volunteers, and so every little penny counts. The donations are also tax deductible, so we would love to have your pennies and quarters. No amount is too small. $5, $1, it all matters, and it all helps somebody in the end.